Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. It is Thursday, April 21st. And guess what? We've got another Elite Series tournament coming up this weekend, Josh.
Yeah, not a fan. I know we're going to get into it a little bit. It feels like a really quick turnaround. I know I texted you this week, I think it was Wednesday, and I said, did you realize that Jonesboro is this weekend? We have to plan for that? So I was not ready for it.
You know, here's a nice thing about Jonesboro, at least. It's like, we know what we're getting.
That's true.
It's a turn. They're not pulling a bait and switch like at Texas State's with the course. We know the course. I think they made a couple changes, but like pretty much it's the same thing. Like, we're getting out of the woods. Chris Dickerson talked about it in our interview series yesterday that it's actually fairly comfortable to go from technical wooded lines out into the open where you're bombing shots because it's just less. It requires less finesse, and so at least we know what we're getting. It's also a great course. I do wish it was next weekend, not this weekend. The buffer around the majors is really nice, and I hate when we don't have it. But off we go. Disc golf season is long. You got to play a lot of tournaments, so we're off and running.
That's right.
Today, we are going to be digging into some mail. Yes, mailbag episode. We're super excited to talk about the Champions Cup some more. I will say there has been an enormous amount of mail about the Kristen Tatar caddy situation. And I don't know what exactly it is about this story that has people like so worked up and wanting to talk about this. We're probably going to keep it to like one little mini segment here if we talk about it at all, because there's just a lot of other things competition related and about the tournament that we want to get to. So just to point it out, we definitely got a lot of mail. People have a lot of strong feelings about it in various directions, and we'll see what we can bring up about it. Josh, I'll let you go ahead and pick the first letter. Let's get it rolling.
Well, I'm actually going to do two letters. I'm going to give you an either or, Charlie. This one's about Champions Cup and whether it should remain at WR Jackson. And I think these are two really good takes on which direction we should go with it. So,
all right.
Bailey hits us first. He says, even if they don't love it, everyone respects WR Jackson, and most players and fans do really enjoy it. A lot of the prestige of Champions Cup was able to garner for its inaugural event came from simply being hosted at WR Jackson. If the PDGA committed deeply to Champions Cup being at WR Jackson, then they could start investing in the facility tomorrow. Prune trees even more precisely, fertilize and promote growth of other trees, hire an arborist to help shape the fairways, bring in Hauk to refine the course even more. Don't simply accept that grass grew in the fairways on its own. Get in there, put seed down. Consider running a mile-long irrigation line and putting in sprinklers here and there. Consider adding a pond in a special place. Bring in some dirt and build up greens that have eroded. Expand spectator accommodations. The list goes on and on. But he says they should commit to each other for the next 4 years and then start to build a special place for years to come. And if we get to 2028 and decide WR Jackson is insufficient and we wanted to move it to another course, then so be it. Okay. So there's option
that's number one.
Yep.
All right.
Option two. This one comes from Aaron. And he starts by talking about kind of our comparison of our majors to golf. And he says, USDGC, for example, is held at the same course every year, like the Masters. You have the European Open that's pretty much held at the same course every year, and that stays the same. World Championships rotates, but we've kind of compromised by using two courses that complement each other as the host for the World Championships. So his solution then is this. He proposes that we have a major similar to the British Open, where it actively rotates for the British Open, 10 different courses. His suggestion is that we pick 5 to 6 premium disc golf courses. I would say probably closer to like maybe the 4 or 5 mark, just because the number of courses that I think would be excellent hosts for this event aren't quite as high. So he says pick 4 to 6 premium disc golf courses and rotate the Champions Cup only between those courses. If they're chosen correctly, the Champions Cup will quickly build prestige because you'll always be playing at the courses that are the best of the bests, and these tournaments will be contested twice at every given course every 8 to 12 years. So most players in their careers will have the opportunity to go back and, for example, if Chris Dickerson wins at WR Jackson, if it comes back in 5 years, he would have the chance to defend his title on the same course.
So I get to choose which of these I want.
That's correct.
All right. I'm taking the first one.
Okay.
I've actually been writing about this in the mailbag, in my written weekly mailbag, which you can get if you're a subscriber to Ultiworld Disc Golf, discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. And I think the PDGA should make like a pretty intensive capital investment project at the IDGC and on that course and on the courses around there, and try to make like a facility that can host a major with 5,000 people. I don't know if that's realistic because they're on leased land. They would have to get county approval to do things like adding a pond. I love the idea of adding some water. There's a lot of things to like about the course, but there's also some pretty significant shortcomings right now. And, the course probably needs to continue to get updated and will need to be updated again in the future. But I love the idea of having a major that happens, sort of at the home of the PDGA on this very, very challenging, very, very compelling course in the woods. The problem with the second option is not the concept. The problem is that all of the great disc golf courses already have tournaments on them mostly every season. Like, are you going to put it at Maple Hill and then just not have the MVP Open one year? Well, the MVP Open just signed a 10-year, $2 million deal for sponsorship. I don't think they're going to want to not be on the tour as the MVP Open. So that's the problem. Like, if we could create these courses that aren't already being used for tournaments, then that would be great. But like, name an amazing course that is not currently being used for a Pro Tour event that would be feasible to use as a Pro Tour event. So
Eagles
it needs
Crossing.
to have some facility. Okay, so Eagles Crossing, right? That's the one that everyone who is listening to the podcast is screaming in their house right now. Eagles Crossing, and yes, I mean, it's obvious that course is going to get a shot on the tour, right? I mean, it has to. This would be a good use for it. I don't know that. I mean, it's already going to start rotating, right? So in some sense, like, we're already doing it. So maybe you could put Eagles Crossing on the list for 2024, and then you could go to, I don't know, there's probably some other John Houck courses out there that are not being used for Pro Tour events. I just don't know that they have volunteers facilities, spectator facilities, locker rooms, like all those kinds of things that are starting to become more important for tour stops. And, obviously when we talked to John last week, he did mention that they're starting to focus on that in course and like venue design. But how far off are we from having those kinds of venues in the ground? We're probably still a year or two away. Anyway, I think both have validity and could be interesting.
I would say I would like the second option to become the case for the European Open. I think there are some exceptional courses in Europe that would set up well for a major. Jarva, Konopiste, Konopiste has been the home of a major before, that I think you could really, incorporate kind of a rotating schedule for the European Open that could become a really exciting event.
The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And I've been talking about it. The new smaller bag from Pound, the Rufus, is almost here. You can check out videos of the prototype version 1 and 2 on Pound Disc Golf's new YouTube channel. Just search Pound Disc Golf on YouTube or go to youtube.com/Pound Disc Golf, and you can check out the videos as well as an introduction to their new fly pack, which is available now. I can't wait to get my hands on a Rufus. Already they've built so many cool new things into just the version 2 of the prototype. So go check out the video and find out more.
But
Josh, here, well, I got the next one for you.
Okay, hit me with it.
Okay, Steve sends in. Kevin Jones and Kyle Klein finished 22nd and 27th, respectively, at Champions Cup. after Jones's 4th place finish at LVC, neither player has finished in the top 10 at an Elite Series or Major this season. Who are you more worried about? Klein has 2 top 10 finishes at Belton and MCO, both Silver Series events, but Jones finished 24th and 17th at those tournaments. So Josh, who are you more worried about right now?
I am more worried. I would have said Kevin Jones a couple weeks ago, but I'm going to say Kyle Klein here. And Charlie, you're the reason that I say Kyle Klein over Kevin Jones. You said when we talked about Kevin Jones and being worried about Kevin Jones that he's had bad starts like this before. He's had bad stretches of tournaments in his career like this and still turned around and been competitive later in the season. I think that's true. There's a history of Kevin Jones being very streaky. I think this is a pretty low for him. I definitely don't think it was quite this bad. But Kyle Klein had one amazing season, and we had really high expectations for him. I mean, the number of sports players in various sports across the world that have had one amazing season and then fallen off the radar is countless. And so I'm more worried about Kyle Klein and making sure he can turn it around in a quick fashion versus Kevin Jones.
I'm taking a look at what they did this weekend in terms of like round ratings. And here's what happened, okay? Kyle Klein has been having awful first rounds all season. He's talked about it on social media. The numbers speak for themselves. Like if you go and you look at his actual results from first rounds this year, like it is averaging 20 or 30 points lower than he's shooting in other rounds. He shot 996 rated in the first round. He shot a 67. And if you just say, okay, let's give him his worst round again, his worst other round again, which was a 62. Okay. So he shot a 67 and then a 58. That was 1055 rated, a 62 and then a 61. So let's say he shot just 62 again. So he shoots 5 strokes better in round 1. That puts him at 29 under on the tournament, and he finishes in 11th. Now, 11th isn't amazing, but like Kyle Klein, for whatever reason, is having trouble starting his tournaments. And I don't know if it's a preparation issue. I don't know if it's some kind of mentality issue coming into round 1. The thing is, I feel like what we're seeing from him in other rounds suggests that he's fine. That like there's some weird mental block happening right now. I mean, he's adjusting to life on the road, on being on tour more, and like these kinds of growing pains I think are normal. It's not like we're seeing him shoot 10, 15 every single round.
That's true.
Right? If we're seeing consistently lower level performance, then I would be much more worried about that. But really what we're seeing is single bad round, typically in round 1, followed by adequate or even excellent play for the rest of the tournament. And the problem is you can't shoot 996 in a round and expect to do well on the Pro Tour anymore. Okay, so Kevin Jones. He finished 22nd. He went 1035 rated, 1030 rated, 1035 rated, 1019 rated. This is where I'm a little more concerned. Because he is not putting together a great round out there. That's a lot of okay. And a lot of okay is you have to figure out like how you're going to come out of that. Now, would it shock you if he came out of Jonesboro this weekend and tore it up? Wouldn't shock me. Big bomber course. He's going to feel a lot more at home than he did in the woods. He's played well at Jonesboro in the past. But I am a little worried about Kevin Jones because it's starting to become, it's not just a couple tournaments at this point. Mm-hmm. And he's like playing horrible at Silver Series events. Like that's not a good sign, right? When he's finishing way down the leaderboard against a totally diminished field, that has to be concerning. And so I'm worried about Kevin Jones right now. And it's unusual. I mean, he's got these brand new discs that he seems to like. I just wonder if maybe there's some like motivation issues because he just got paid and like it's not contract year for Kevin Jones. won't be shocked if he comes out of it, but right now I'm worried about KJ USA.
Next email comes from Disc Golf Doug. And he says, Simon put on his vlog recently, and that as he walked through the Hall of Fame, commenting that he would love to be on the wall someday. And this got me thinking, if we're drawing the line purely on performance, not including other contributions to the sport, which players have played well enough or are on track to play well enough to merit a spot in the Hall of Fame? So he gave us a long list for MPO players and FPO players with number of wins, of Elite Series, Disc Golf World Tour wins, National Tour, etc., and their majors. So Charlie, I'm going to just pick a couple of these, just based on resume, and ask you if you feel like this merits the Hall of Fame. Because, I mean, you have your obvious ones. I'm not going to sit here and ask you if, Wysocki, who has 6-30, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't think that's a hard one, but I think there are a couple that interest me, and I'm curious to get your take on it. And I think there are some hard ones here. So first up, do you think somebody with 2 majors and 6 Elite Series wins has the resume to get in? This is right in the middle of the major winners pack.
2 majors, 6 Elite Series. I mean, here's just a general question that I would ask. Like, if you win a major, like, I think maybe automatically all multi-time major winners should get into the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Like, how many players are out there that win more than 1 major? Like, that number is not large, right? Maybe you have it right
MPO.
there.
Yep, 13 on MPO.
And that's current active players, or this is players who are not yet in the Hall.
I'm not sure, because this also includes Climo. The list has Doss.
Oh, okay. So you have 13 total players. Yes. Okay, so automatically, yes.
Okay.
If you've won multiple majors, you're in, which means, hello, welcome, Chris Dickerson, James Conrad, you've made the Hall of Fame.
James
Conrad's probably going to make the Hall of Fame just because he has the most famous shot of all time.
That's true.
Nico
was the 2 and 6.
Nico, interesting.
So Nico is in the Hall of Fame. So here's my next question.
I think so. I think if you win multiple majors, that's probably enough. I don't really know where the bar is right now.
That's the game we're playing here, Charlie. I'm gonna try and get a bar out of you. So
okay.
How about this? 1 major and 4 Elite Series wins.
That's super borderline. I think my initial inclination is no.
Okay. Big Germ does not make the cut then.
See, but here's the thing about Big Germ. Big Germ's gonna get in because of his media presence.
Sure, and this is just on performance, right?
I get it, but here's the weird thing about the Hall of Fame right now is that they don't they don't distinguish between who's getting in for performance and who's getting in for like being culturally important or helping to grow the sport or whatever.
And that's true.
I mean, both of those things are important, but I think we need to start to have some more of a sense of like, all right, like this person's in and this is their resume from a performance side. And then like, where do we start to feel like that bar is? Because you have those kinds of things in baseball,
right?
Do you have enough hits over the course of your career? Do you have enough, home runs? Like, you have to hit certain thresholds or win multiple MVPs, or it's also got a high bar for getting in.
Yes.
So continue.
Okay. So 1 major and 11 Elite Series wins.
Now that sounds to me more like one that is a yes, because that's 11 Elite Series wins is a lot.
That would be
so I'm
Eagle
gonna say
McMahon.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I agree with that.
And he's just getting started. So like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hard
exactly.
to imagine him not being a lock by the end of his career.
So now here comes I think a tricky one. 11 Elite Series wins, but no majors.
I say probably not.
So Juliana Korver, based on resume, would not make it in.
I think she's already in, isn't she?
I think so too. This is like you said. This is the thought experiment of if we had a
She
well-defined.
didn't win any majors?
According to Disc Golf Doug, no.
That's crazy.
So
I feel like the sport was at a different place back then.
I think
so
so
like
too.
I don't quite know what I mean, like Juliana Korver had a season where she basically won every single tournament in which she played. And so like it's hard for me to say that she shouldn't get in. But yeah, so she finished second to Des Redding at Worlds in 2002. I just think they didn't have many majors back then.
right, but Des Redding has 4 and 28.
Okay, but I got to say, I think Doug may have just missed on this one because Juliana won Worlds in how many times? Juliana's won Worlds many times. What am I even talking about?
That's what I wondered.
Yeah, that so
That's, all right,
JK,
sorry, Doug.
Total lock, obviously lock.
Okay.
Yeah, she's definitely won a ton of majors.
Okay, but you feel like you have to win a major to get into the Hall of Fame.
I mean, I think it's theoretically possible for somebody to be like an incredible player everywhere but the majors and get in, but it's a high bar.
It's a high
It'd
bar.
have to be
Okay.
like you're winning 3 to 4 Elite Series events every year and you never get a major. But I think, you know, when we start to look at the record books, majors are going to be the ones that matter.
It's true. Yeah, I think it's a fun experiment. I think it was fun to, you know, just kind of look at where we feel the bar is based on performance. I agree with you. I think you need to have different ways to get into Hall of Fame and clarifications about what that
Juliana
standard is.
Korver's won Worlds 5 times, just to be clear. I don't, yeah.
I said that and I was like, hold on a minute. I don't think I'm right about that. That's what Doug says, but
Do you disagree with anything that I just said, Josh?
no, I don't think so. I think I agree with I'm trying to decide where the line would be in terms of I think with MPO, like 1 major and X number of wins is the interesting line.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, I think that's where it starts to be like murky.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. So sorry your numbers were wrong, but I think it made it for an interesting thought experiment.
Oh, well, the JK numbers were wrong, but I think the rest all correct. All right, so let's move on. Here's what Pete's got. I was firmly in the "you're being too hard on Calvin" camp. Golf is a solo game with high variation, so it's sometimes wrong to apply overly deterministic narratives to randomized outcomes. However, you may have a point. Here are the numbers. Since January 1st, 2020, all of Calvin's DGPT, NT, and major rounds averaged 1049. His final round average for those tournaments is 1048. So, you know, basically the same. However, when Calvin is in contention going into the final round, as Pete has defined by being within 3 strokes going into the final round, his final round average is 1042, 7 points below his total average, 6 points below his final round average overall, and 15 points below his average for those tournaments, which, as Pete points out, makes some sense because he needed to play well in the first 2 or 3 rounds to put himself into contention. If we throw out 2020, Calvin's last solo Elite Series victory, the numbers drop to a final round average is 1036. My mind has been changed. When Calvin is in contention, he hasn't delivered. That's the narrative, and the stats back it up. Not that it hasn't happened, though. In the 2020 Memorial and 2020 Jonesboro, he put down 1070 plus final rounds to jump into first place, but it hasn't happened since 2020. And we've also got the updated majors once we include the updated numbers once we include the majors. So when you do the same calculation with being in contention, his final round average is 1037, 11 points below his total average, and 18 points below his average for those tournaments. So there you go. Remember last year at Worlds, he had a pretty poor final round after very much being in contention, looking like he might win the tournament. I don't think he'd laid a huge egg at W.R. Jackson, but on the other hand, it wasn't his best round. So Josh, does this Do you feel like these numbers match the eye test for what we've seen from Calvin in the big spots when he's in contention at Elite Series and majors?
It does. And I think that, that idea of being too hard on Calvin, we do have to give credit where credit is due, but I think that there is a deficiency in Calvin's final rounds when he is close, that he can't close out tournaments. And I mean, Pete did some amazing math. He sent us the spreadsheet with all his numbers. He put in the work for this. And it's clear that Calvin does not play as well going into a final round when he's in contention. And it's funny because what did we say the average was when majors were included for his final round? It was, let's see, where did it go? The final round average of 1037. He shot a 1032 this weekend for his final round. I mean, again, not a huge egg, but when you're shooting 18 points below your tournament average at the tournaments that you get yourself into contention in your final round, you're not going to win a lot of tournaments. So,
yeah.
Thanks, Pete, for putting in those numbers for us.
And I think it's still a small sample size. Even if you look at like the last 3 years, there's not that many tournaments where he's going to be in contention, but it does feel like that's what we've seen. You have to admit it. If you're a big Calvin Heimberg fan, it's probably pretty frustrating when you see him go out there and fail to deliver to what he's capable of in the big spots. And, if it keeps happening, then it really does become a narrative.
Yeah.
But, the math is the math. And it's, as you said, 18 points below your tournament average. Obviously, you're going to have shot well to that point. But still, like I think you want to see the reverse. I think you want to see players finishing their strongest. I think you're most likely to win in those circumstances compared to the alternative here.
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
You got it?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I had one that I want to read for you. It comes from Eric. This one I know. I always pull these emails out, Charlie, because I know they make you happy. He wanted to ask, when will the Disc Golf Pro Tour embrace gambling and expand what gambling partners they work with? When I told my brother that the first disc golf major of the season was happening this weekend, he immediately checked FanDuel to see if there were odds posted on tournament winners, because he would have immediately and happily dropped $15 on the favorite. This is a guy that lives in Virginia and watches Indian Premier League cricket every day because, one, it's on ESPN Plus, and two, because he can bet on it. See?
And three, because he's a degenerate.
Seems like the Disc Golf Pro Tour could dramatically expand its viewership and even its subscription base if it partnered with a site like FanDuel, because if people can bet on something, they will watch it.
I mean, he's not wrong.
I love this email.
Look, I have definitely watched sporting events that I otherwise did not very much care about because I had money on the game. I don't bet on the rugby or the cricket or anything like that. I mean, respect to you if that's what you're into. But, I bet on some obscure college basketball games or some NBA game that I didn't care about because I liked the number or whatever. I think this is the sort of most obvious next partnership for the Pro Tour. And I've talked about it before. I mean, they already have embraced gambling. Mm-hmm. I think they know this. I just think that somehow they haven't gotten connected with the right people at, DraftKings or FanDuel or whatever. And, there's some regulatory stuff, you have to file paperwork and get approved by individual states in order to offer lines on particular professional tour or, leagues or whatever. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know the full process behind that. But, on DraftKings, you can, at least last year, you could bet on Ultimate Frisbee games. And disc golf's a lot bigger than Ultimate Frisbee. Yeah. So it's totally possible. I think it's a matter of getting connected to these groups and being like, hey, we're having a ton of success. Prize Picks is doing these lines. And I hate betting on Prize Picks. So I really want to see futures come to disc golf where we can start to put down money on, who's going to win tournaments. And I do think it would increase, look, I don't think this is going to be some watershed moment where all of a sudden viewership doubles. But at the margin, I think it's fun for people. it increases the engagement with tournaments, and it makes it easier for your existing fans to feel connected to the sport because they have a monetary reason to care as well. And there's plenty of evidence that this is happening across sports. The NFL has long benefited because there's gambling. It's like the most popular league to gamble on in the world. And, for years they held it at arm's length. And now all these leagues are starting to have official sportsbook partners. It's a matter of time for disc golf. I'm sort of surprised we haven't already seen it, but I think that next 2 years, it should absolutely happen, and it needs to be a high priority for the Pro Tour, honestly.
And you can bet when that happens, Ultiworld will have your official betting podcast that you can come to get all the best lines, because Charlie's just waiting for the day that he can have a podcast for disc golf betting lines.
All right, this one comes from Derek. I had VIP spectator tickets for Saturday and Sunday at Champions Cup and really enjoyed the experience. However, on Championship Sunday, people with regular tickets who were limited to certain areas around the course decided they wanted to follow the lead cards. This meant rather than the 75 people who paid for the VIP tickets following the card, it was closer to 200 people for much of the round. This meant tons of people who paid for the VIP passes to follow the card were not able to see what was happening. I had someone tell me to move because they couldn't see, and later realized they didn't even have tickets to be there. PDGA and DGPT officials once made an announcement threatening to remove people from the park if they were not in the proper areas, but never enforced anything and just let the problem continue for the whole final round. People were tucking their badges and passes into pockets and shirts so officials and other spectators couldn't see what tickets they bought. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it because pulling aside an official during the tournament could interfere with the players competing. There's some irony in that. But the whole situation left a lot to be desired. I could have paid hundreds less for the same experience. Is this just part of growing pains with the recent influx of spectators, a miss from the PDGA and or DGPT?
I think a miss. That this is... We haven't heard a lot about this. This isn't the chatter on social media because there's another narrative of contacting officials being dominating discussion. But what I will say is that I think if spectatorship really is the ticket to growth, no pun intended, then you have to ensure that your spectator policies are well defined and well enforced. Noelle at World Championship last year was unbelievable in how good she was at spectator control, and she did not.
I love
take
the shout out to Noelle right now.
Anything, I will shout her out anytime we have spectator issues, because that's something the Disc Golf Pro Tour has to take seriously, and the PDGA has to take seriously, especially at majors. There should be a person, and maybe there is one, who is director of logistics, what have you, who has an employee whose job is spectator management. And that is all that they do. And they do it prior to and during tournaments. They identify spectator areas. They define where, each pass is going to get you into. And then you have very closely enforced rules and guidelines around those spectator passes. Otherwise, you're going to, if there's a real chance, and I don't know Derek, but there's a real chance that Derek will never buy a VIP pass again. And that's a miss by the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. It has to be, if you're going to sell spectator passes, you have to deliver on it.
Couldn't agree more. I think if you're going to sell an upsell ticket that has something like you get to follow the lead card by paying for this expensive ticket, and then you just let people run willy-nilly all around the course, that's a horrible experience for people who are paying for this upper level ticket, and they should refund everybody.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's probably difficult because there's not really obvious entry points where you could have somebody checking tickets or something like that. But you got to figure out how you're going to do that. It's totally inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
So this to me is just about the general issue of, well, we need to create courses that are designed to be spectated, and we need to have the ability to do that kind of management from, hole to hole or area to area, you need to have a little gate where people are checking tickets. And then if you have the VIP ticket, you get to go inside the gate and go around in those holes. I haven't heard about this before.
I haven't either.
I haven't heard about this from Pro Tour events. If you're a VIP ticket holder at a tournament and you've had a similar experience, let us know. I'd actually be pretty curious to hear about it. Upshot@ultiworld.com. But I think it sounds like there just was not enough spectator management in place. And, I get it. There's also kind of like a disincentive to like go in and like bust people up and like kick people out. And people want to go and watch and follow along with the lead cards. Totally understand that. But then don't sell VIP tickets.
Right.
Like, you have to make a choice one way or the other, and you have to enforce the rules that you're setting in these tickets. Otherwise, people are going to be pissed off, and understandably so. All right, let's see what else we got here. Okay, this one comes from Aaron. W.R. Jackson looks like a great course. Pretty fair lines, multiple angles on some holes, and it has some teeth. But my tolerance for watching 4 rounds of the exact same course on coverage is quickly waning. You two have talked in the past that if a tournament is 4 rounds, 2 courses would be appropriate, and 1 course would be appropriate for a 3-round tournament. I think we're quickly approaching a time where multiple pin positions are necessary. It would help solve a problem of the time and manpower it takes for the tour to set up multiple courses. And I don't subscribe to those complaining that it's too hard to practice for 2 courses, but this would also provide that additional angle without learning brand new lines for each hole. I need variety in coverage, especially for 4 days. Multiple pin positions should be mandatory for these championship level events, if not across the entire Elite Series. And last thing, because I'm sure someone will say, but course records, who cares? I want the best viewing experience, and I want the pros to be challenged more. I get that I won't have my way with a 2-course 4-round tournament for every stop, but multiple pin positions is a necessary half measure.
I love this. I think this is a great solution, and I think there's an easy way to kind of address it in practice. You take fence stake posts and you hit them into the ground where the second pin position is going to be, so that the pros can at least just play the drive and the upshot to that alternate pin position. It doesn't require extra baskets, and I love this idea because I think you can take holes and you can change them enough to change up the viewing experience as well as the game with minimal effort, minimal work, and minimal disruption to pros' touring schedule. I think this is an excellent solution.
I think the question just becomes, can the courses accommodate multiple pin positions? In golf, it's like you have a green, and to put up a second pin position in is trivial. You just walk 10 feet over there and you stick the hole in the ground. But in disc golf, to meaningfully change the shape of the hole, on the green, there's going to be some holes where all you have to do is, move the basket 25 feet back and to the left or something and put it into behind a different tree. And it could actually change the upshot. But there's also courses where you're going to have to move the basket 50 to 100 feet. And so do you have the space and the ability to do that? Now, if you're designing a course with this in mind, of course it's possible. But I think it's difficult, at least on some courses, to make this work. I do like the idea. I've liked in the past when, it still happens at USDGC. They move the basket on 17.
Yep.
And it changes the hole. Now, it's still a shot to the island, but when the basket is tucked super far up to the OB on the left-hand side, which is typically where we see the basket in the final round, that's pretty compelling because it makes the ace run a little more dangerous. It makes long-distance putting more dangerous because if you miss, you're going to go over the hay bales and go out of bounds. And I do think that it is a way to add intrigue to the course that isn't overly onerous for players to practice. Because if you're throwing up shots from the same spot in the fairway, whether you're throwing to basket 1 or basket 2, practicing that in a practice round doesn't take a substantially longer amount of time. It's like, okay, if it's in this position, I need to throw this shot. If it's in that position, sit there, throw 4 discs at it, do it again for the second pin position, boom. It's very different from having to learn a whole second course.
The thing I will say, I think it would be easiest to do on ball golf courses, and they are the ones that need the variation the most. taking...
And it's a good point, because you have a lot of land out there.
Exactly. So OTB Open, Portland Open, LVC. I mean, LEC obviously plays a lot of courses, but an alternative could be shrinking that down to 1 or 2 courses and then moving pin positions between rounds. They have a lot of land. They have areas that, I mean, yes, it's going to take some more work on the tournament staff to make that happen and make it compelling and make sure it's still a good hole. But even if you moved, 9 of the 18 baskets, I think that would be sufficient to change it up and make it a good change. So I like the suggestion.
Sure. All right. Let's try to just quickly summarize all of the mail we got about the Kristen Tatar caddy situation. We had somebody come in and say that Kristen Tatar was robbed of a championship. That's what Ryan said. It was such an awful look. She was robbed of a championship. And I've heard some people say that, like, this affected her mentality to the point that it may have cost her the event. I consider me pretty skeptical of that one. I mean, she got multiple birdies right after this incident happened on the course. Let's see. What else do we have here? Definitely some people who were pretty upset, and that, the rule, other rules weren't being enforced correctly. Mm-hmm. King ices Tatar. Like, I don't know if I agree with these, but a lot of people are pretty upset. I have seen a couple people really advocating that, Elaine King was trying to do the right thing. She was trying to warn Kristen. This isn't that big of a deal. Probably still inappropriate because of her position as a commentator to say anything, but that, people are just like going way too crazy with this. I've seen a couple of those takes, but a lot of people are mad at the point where they're saying that she should no longer commentate on DGN or that she should resign from the board of directors. I don't know. I think people need to relax a little bit on some of this stuff, but it's definitely upset people a lot, Josh.
It has, and it's hard. It's hard to grasp why this is the thing. Like, what? I agree. I fully agree that what she did was inappropriate, regardless of intentions. We talked about this. It was, as a commentator, you should not be inserting yourself in the way in the game itself in any way, shape, or form. That is not your job as a commentator. But this has dominated disc golf since the Champions Cup. Nothing else is getting any air because this is still the story. I'm curious to know how long this goes, but people are upset about this.
Yeah, well, I think, like I said on Tuesday, I think this story is going to have short legs, and people are going to be past it here pretty quick. Elaine King was on Smashbox. If you want to go check out the interview where she talks about her decision and why she did it and what she would do if this situation came up again in the future. So I can recommend that you go hear from Elaine. Let's end with this. Jeff says, I wanted to ask about a significant part of Paige's Champions Cup win that I didn't see here or discussed much in the immediate aftermath. Isn't she now the first MPO or FPO player to have the modern disc golf Grand Slam? That's a huge deal in ball golf since it is such a rare achievement, even for the best players. Yes. If we're going to say the Champions Cup is the thing going forward, then yes. She's won a Worlds. She's won a U.S. Women's. She's won a European. And now she's won the Champions Cup. So, yeah. Now, there's only been one opportunity to get this. So, I don't know if I'm going to kill Macbeth for not having the career Grand Slam yet. And there's also, what do we do with past majors that happened once or a couple times? What about Japan Open or Australian Open? Part of the problem is that inconsistency of majors makes discussions like this challenging to have. And I think that's why I've been advocating for a long time that we need to get to this sort of established rhythm of like, these are the majors that we have them every year, and we can start to build historical discussion around these tournaments. But it's true. And so Jeff follows up, who's going to be the next person to get the career Grand Slam, Josh?
I'm gonna take the obvious choice, Macbeth, because Macbeth, if I'm correct, he is the only active player who has all three of the other ones?
Well, let's see. Rick's never won a USDGC.
Chris has never won Worlds.
Katrina.
Or European.
Does Katrina won European?
Maybe.
I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't either.
I'll look it up.
Okay, I'm going to go to Statmando.
Yeah, I think... I certainly think it's possible that... I mean, I think betting on Macbeth is a good place to start. So let's see about Katrina. She won... Well, there was something called European Masters in 2014. Oh, no, she has won European Open. She won it in 2015 and 2017.
Okay. So
she's got Worlds. She's got U.S. Women's back from 2010 and 2012.
Yep.
It's crazy it's been that long since she's won one of the U.S. Women's. But, she's got a shot at it, too.
So Katrina or Macbeth is basically what you're asking me. I actually like Katrina's. I like the odds on Katrina better than I like the odds on Macbeth.
Interesting.
I think Katrina is probably my favorite for next year.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'll take Katrina.
Okay. We'll be at Toboggan next year.
Yeah.
I think both have a real opportunity to do it.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine if Macbeth gets his career Grand Slam at Toboggan?
Wow.
Talk about history.
That'd be epic. But great point. Great get, Jeff. That's a great stat that I haven't seen discussed anywhere.
Yeah.
All right. So very quick, Jonesboro Open. It's happening. We all know what the course is about. It's more technical than it may seem. This is one of the best courses on tour in terms of open style golf, but there's interesting lines and shapes and a lot of elevation change. Very, very cool course. All the coverage that you've come to expect, because this is the first Disc Golf Pro Tour Elite Series event since Texas State's. So we're back on the Pro Tour, and players jockeying for position in the standings that we discussed on Tuesday as we get closer to the cut line for the Match Play Championship. Josh, your picks. Who you got?
I'll start over on FPO. I have Kristen Tatar in third place. No, I mean, she hasn't missed the podium yet. I'm not banking against her to do it yet.
Can't.
I have Haley King in second. I think she had some good rounds. Excuse me, at Champions Cup. And I think that now that she's got a tournament under her belt, that she could do really well at Jonesboro. She also throws really far. But my winner is going to be Katrina. Katrina and Paige have traded back and forth, just dominating victories over the past 2 years. I've got Katrina to take it this year.
I'm going Paige Pierce in third. She's played great here in the past. I've got her on the podium. Katrina Allen in second. Similar story there. Both Kat and Paige have won this tournament. But I'm taking Kristen Tatar to get her first win of the season on the Pro Tour. She did win the Memorial, but that was an A tier. I think she's going to be highly motivated to get a win this weekend. And I think the course sets up really well for her game. And I think she's finally going to get over that hump and get her first tour win of 2022. In MPO, I've got Macbeth in third, Calvin Heimberg in second, and Ricky Wysocki, who's been just tremendous at this tournament in the past, won it last year and has multiple wins at Jonesboro. Similar story here. I think the people who just came up short are going to be extra motivated to win this weekend. So I'm taking Rick to win MPO. Josh?
Look, if we're going to take and call Chris Dickerson number one in the world right now, I'm not going to leave him out of my top three. I got Chris Dickerson coming in third. I don't think this is the best course for his game, but I think he is obviously just the power contender now and deserves to be on the podium. I've got Macbeth in second. I think he is one who's also going to be really motivated to have a bounce back, and he's played well here in the past.
He's coming off of a crazy round.
But I actually am taking the same 20 results as 2020. I've got Calvin Heimberg taking the win here. This is the anomaly where he was able to come back from being behind and beat out Macbeth in a final round duel. He plays well here. I'm hoping that gives him the opportunity to kind of get over those final round jitters.
He's also going to have that motivation factor after last week.
Right.
I don't have Chris Dickerson on the podium. I just think it's hangover week.
Sure. No, that's...
maybe he'll prove me wrong and go win it. But, it's all good.
Look,
steak dinner in the parking lot. Like, take a little time off, bud.
he's playing for another steak dinner, Charlie. Come on. Chicken dinner, I guess.
Okay, over under. Josh, what you got for me?
Yes. Paige and Chris, winners of the Champions Cup.
Yep.
What will be their average finish at Jonesboro? So taking their finishes and putting them together and averaging them out. Number is 3.5. So at that number, if one of them wins it, say Paige, for example, wins it, and Chris takes 5th, then that would be 3rd.
I'll take the under.
Take the under. Okay, so you're saying you think they will finish 3rd or better as an average finish?
Or better than 3.5.
Better than 3.5.
I get some.
Right.
I could get some, thirds in there or something.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I just think Paige is very likely to finish in the top 3.
Okay.
And so if she finishes, it makes a pretty big difference if she's first versus 3rd.
It is a big difference.
Because that just decreases the range for Chris Dickerson's finish. But I feel like Dickerson's going to finish top 7.
I've got him on my podium.
You have him on your podium?
So I agree with you.
And so it's just a matter of like how well does Paige do. But yeah, it's a good number, but I'm going to take the under.
Okay. All right. Put it in.
All right. Remember, you can go to discgolf.ultiworld.com/upshot-picks. We've got link in the description. And you can check out all of our picks on our over-unders. Vote for who you think picks are the best. Check out the leaderboard and even make your own picks. So check that out. Again, discgolf.ultiworld.com/upshot-picks. That is going to do it for today's show. We look forward to coming back with you next week. Do not miss our subscriber bonus segment when we talk Jonesboro Open on Sunday in our Rapid React show that happens live in our Discord after every Elite Series event. Again, discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe to join and get that and more every Elite Series event. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.